Hi, everybody. Welcome to Dissecting the State of AI Tools in Sales. I am your host, Gerard Green, and I am joined by the one and only Blue Bowen, Research Principal at G2. How's it going this morning, Blue?
It's going great. Going great. Thanks for having me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. We are excited because obviously we've partnered with you, fine folks at G2, on a branded research, custom research data report that wanted to understand and analyze the perceptions, usage, and adoption, and really the experience of sales reps using AI throughout their sales processes. We learned a lot. But we were tired of hearing about what this looked like, and we wanted to get into the depths of how it actually is working in the world. There is no playbook for AI in sales, as you and I both know, and we're just starting to get the data to help us understand how it all works and how it makes sense. But Blue, I probably didn't do the best job of introducing you, so why don't you introduce yourself to the audience for the folks who don't know you?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. My name is Blue Bowen, Research Principal at G2, covering all things AI. So whether that's LLMs, the emergence of small language models, everything in between, as well as everything sales tech. So, how is AI being applied throughout all of the sales tech categories, as well as how are people using it, adopting it? What challenges are they having? Surprise, surprise. I think data is a common challenge as a little sneak peek, but excited to talk about this report and kind of what I'm hearing and seeing.
Absolutely. And I think what's interesting about this report is that we talk a lot about AI. This was researched with AI. G2 sourced a sample of over 100 sellers and sales leaders. And instead of using a traditional kind of text-based survey where we craft some questions, put that into either multiple choice or open-ended, this was done by an AI assistant trained on the questions that we design. Those questions and those answers were transcribed, verified, and an analyst team at G2 used AI to detect patterns and extract those insights across 13 themes. So very excited not only about the approach, but I'll say, Blue, the speed and the depth we were able to gather. I don't think a traditional text-based fill in the blank survey could have gotten us this level of detail, nor could we have gotten it this fast. So again, we talk about AI use cases a lot. This is a new one. This is a great one with G2, and I'm really thrilled that we were able to partner to make this happen.
Yeah, it's a new offering. It's exciting to see. And we're not just talking about AI, we're kind of preaching it as well with this new kind of custom research offering. And it's great to see the scale at which you can get those insights, which is a lot quicker than traditional kind of market research methods.
Absolutely. So let's get into the data, right? So when we looked at the first theme, it centered around adoption. Saw that a lot of folks are dabbling into it. But again, there is no playbook. This, from our perspective, Blue, looked like an uptick from last year, which clearly didn't surprise us. Do you, in your capacity, see this now as table stakes, or are we still in an early adopter phase?
I think it's a little bit of both. 73% is great. In the last report I did in July, it was around 60%. So great to see kind of that increase already. So I think, while we're not in the early adopter stage of kind of AI in sales, as most of the reps are using it in some capacity, I think we're still very early on in the AI journey in sales. I think what's surprising here is that only 13% are applying AI across their entire workflow.
Mhm.
So right now, we're seeing the most usage, whether it be particular tasks, whether that's researching, whether it's drafting an email, et cetera. So I think we are in the earlier stage as it's not embedded across the entire workflows. They're kind of using multiple point solutions to help with efficiency, for example, or productivity, rather than it being truly embedded across the whole workflow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I forgot to encourage the audience. This is a live webinar. So if there's any questions, thoughts, suggestions, comments you have, feel free to share those in the chat. Blue and I are monitoring this. And so if you have questions, insights, or ideas, feel free to get those there. We saw a similar theme in our usage and kind of our conversations with customers as well. Blue, a lot of folks are stepping into a world where there's AI for a specific use case, a specific task, and they get good at that, right? They get good at using AI for outbound email or for account research. But again, across the stack, across the process throughout is something we tend to see a fall off around, particularly because we find that a lot of tools lose context. I might use one tool for one task, another tool for another task, another tool for another task, and those tools don't talk to each other. And so, not surprised to see that as far as the adoption is concerned. Moving on to those use cases, you can see the data here. We see that when we ask folks what are the outcomes that they've been able to achieve, what do they see? They see a reduction in manual research. They see obviously an improved response rate from AI generated or AI created outbound, because it probably sounds more professional. It probably is a little better linked to some of the challenges they have. And one big one that didn't surprise me, clear to want to understand what it did for you, Blue, was it's helping sales reps ramp faster. What do you think that's about?
I think that is going to be a lot of what we're seeing in the future in terms of like how AI is being applied. I think that onboarding, sales training, simulation is really a great use case. Why throw your new SDR or AE, for those people who think SDRs won't exist in 10 years, out into the right away? Why not have them practice with a role play? Why not hone their skills in kind of a playground environment rather than throwing them out to the wolves? So I think the training and onboarding makes sense. It's kind of applying those best practices early on and at scale, and it doesn't take a lot of resources to do. So I think that's a great kind of example of the evolution of, a lot of times people hear AI in sales, their gut reaction might be AI SDRs, just kind of spraying and praying. There's a lot more ways that AI can be applied. And I think kind of that sales training role playing is a great kind of example of one of the other ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of other ways to use it, when we think about some of the more high value use cases, right? Such a heavy lean on what we'll say is top of the funnel. What are some of the use cases you think will ultimately move the needle when it comes to sales performance end to end? Getting a meeting is one piece of it, but obviously meetings don't equal revenue. So what do you think will help move the needle? What do you make of this from your desk?
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is we're going to see kind of a shift in terms of using AI in those middle funnel activities. I think what needs to happen before we get there is solving a lot of the data problem. In the report, it said, I think it was 56% reported difficulties with integrating AI into or AI tools with their CRM systems. And, a lot of that kind of messy middle is where that's like the secret sauce of a sales rep, right? It's easy to kind of replicate generating meetings, what a good email looks like, how to, research a challenge and then connect that to your solution. But that kind of messy middle is what differentiates a good sales rep from a bad sales rep. It's what progresses a deal along. It's, are you creating a business case alongside the customer, or are you kind of copy pasting templates that don't resonate with your customer? So I think solving kind of the data integrations and ensuring that, all of the tools that you use along the sales process, whether it's as simple as a CPQ, whether it's a digital sales room or a mutual action plan, or, how you're engaging the whole buying committee, because it's probably not just one person. That's kind of more the nuances. So I think there's a little hesitancy right now because that's customer facing, right? Higher risk and then higher reward. But I think we're a little still kind of taken aback with that. And so that's why we're still in kind of the early adopter stages. We're doing what is less risky. And then once we get to middle funnel, once we have the data, we're confident in it. That's when I think we'll see that kind of expansion of AI in sales adopted more frequently.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Thanks, Boo. Moving on to a fun question we had, because it was literally split down the middle. We asked the audience about their preference of point solutions, right? So best of breed AI sales assistant, sales agents that do the one task, or more of we'll call it the platform agent or the integrated agent or the super agent, or AI that can do more than one thing that gathers that context. Interesting split. It's very indicative, I think, where we are in the world. But 20% prefer the integrated platform, 20% prefer the point tools. and it seemed to split along the power line. So, question for you: what's your take on the split? Why do you think managers tend to want the platform, and why do you think individual contributors want specialized tools?
Yeah, I'll start with the ICs. I think sales reps are trying to look for the best solution possible to complete a task. So whether it's, how am I going to get the most robust research on this prospect in terms of understanding their business challenges, what they're talking about, and then kind of orchestrating that into an outbound message. So they're looking for something that's great at doing one thing to help increase their efficiency, productivity, so they can, support and go through the whole book of business. Managers, on the other hand, have maybe 8 to 20 reps under them that they're trying to look at performance, to coach, to help kind of move deals along. So by toggling through multiple tools, that's not advantageous for the manager, right? So they're looking for more of a analytical lens, an overall viewpoint of, how are my reps doing? And that's a lot easier to do if you're looking at kind of one system of record or, source of truth. So I think it's just kind of personality in terms of, what they're trying to achieve, and sales reps are trying to get deals progressed and closed. So they're looking at one thing to do one thing well.
No, makes a ton of sense. And they're also, speaking of the ICs, just looking to get it done. There seemed to be a caveat about wanting point tools because there's a little bit of tool fatigue, as there is with anything, right? But there seems to be one here where sellers say, hey, I kind of tap out after 3 tools. So question for you, is this sustainable? Do we think about a world where, just like with sales tool proliferation, AI agent or AI assistant proliferation becomes a thing? Will there be a bubble here, do you think, burst, or sales reps will be just fine?
I think it'll be a little bit of both. I think there obviously will be a little bit of a bubble, but I think it's just going to be a shift, right? Like if you were to say what are the 3 tools a sales rep uses now, they'd probably say CRM, maybe sales intelligence, and sales engagement, or something like that. I think we're going to see a shift in maybe what those 3 are. I see a future state where sales reps aren't really engaging with the CRM. Everything that they're doing is auto enriched and sent over to the CRM. That's maybe a more of a manager view and things like that. Rather than relying, it's 2025, we're talking about getting rid of sales reps, but still so many organizations rely on them to input the data and data entry rather than talk to customers. So I don't think we'll see a world where they love having 12 tools at their disposal all the time that they're trying to manage which one to update, which one to do, because with more automation comes more problems. But I think we'll see a shift in terms of what are their top 3 tools, and it might not be CRM in the future.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, no love lost for CRM, but it ain't going nowhere. That's for sure. So I think we share a similar view on the role of it in terms of kind of top down management, analytics, trends, the whole nine. But as far as reps day to day usage of it, I absolutely see the same opportunity for there to be a AI to help with the data entry that I think plagues many organizations. What would your advice be to leaders who are thinking about balancing these two? There's the world that obviously I think the leader wants, as you said, top-down visibility, control, insight, coaching, versus I think the flexibility many tools provide, but the leadership's got the money. So what would be your advice to a leader or a manager who has budget, has resources, in balancing the probably high adopted, high usage tools for ICs versus the ones they need to do their job effectively to coach, scale, and grow?
Yeah, I would say, identify where your biggest weaknesses are. Where do you have gaps? Where do you have problems with your current state? If you already have issues with data cleanliness, maybe you don't want to add another tool. If you already have, or if you do have great analytics in terms of you're identifying where there is bottlenecks or lag in your sales process, then look at kind of specialized tools that are going to help advance those. So I think it's really organization by organization in terms of where you are on the AI adoption kind of curve, as well as what your current state is. Do you have data governance? Do you have systems and processes to ensure that fields are completed in the CRM, that the stages progress, or is it still kind of the wild west? So I would say it's really unique, but identifying where you have the most issues or troubles, and then identifying where you're willing to risk a little bit, because it's not going to be 100% right away, and it's not going to, there's learning to do with AI and how your reps adopt it. So I would say it's kind of very nuanced in terms of how your organization is right now.
Well, great advice. Thank you. Appreciate that. We teased this earlier. We alluded to it, and I think it's important to talk a little about this kind of pipeline to revenue gap. And again, just for the audience, like most of who we surveyed were B2B sellers. It's a tough B2B climate out here. And when they looked at the leverage and the results and quite frankly, the return they're getting for the tools, you see this jump in pipeline. So I'm building more pipeline. I'm more productive, 1.5, 2x productivity gains. But 20% in sales growth, nothing to shake a stick at, but marginal relative to the other gains they get. So what do you think's going on here? Do you see a world where, I'm getting more pipeline, it's not translated into proportional revenue growth, that's just the way it is? Or is there something deeper under the surface worth exploring?
I think it is a lot going on. I think one, we're likely seeing with your increased productivity, so that means you have more time left over and something to do with, right? So that's being applied for a few different things. A larger book of business, you have to support more prospects and customers. So perhaps you're scattered out a little bit more, but also in terms of, pipeline doesn't equal quota. So like, how is the pipeline that you have? Is the lead quality good, or are you just having pipeline for numbers' sake? So, is it pipeline for pipeline purposes, or is it pipeline for close one purposes? I think that's a kind of key distinguisher. As well as, the more similar to this, like the more pipeline you have, it provides sometimes false increase in early stage confidence for your forecast. So you might have pipeline out the wazoo, but none of it's qualified, none of it's really good. So you're projecting that you're going to have a great forecast. But then once you get in that middle funnel, once you uncover, do discovery and understand, oh, they're not a good fit, or we're solving for the wrong problems, or perhaps we don't have the best business case, or high objection from the CFO in terms of budget and things like that, that's where the truth kind of comes out. So I think we're seeing, just as we're seeing AI applied heavily to the top of funnel prospecting lead gen, we're not seeing it trickle all the way through yet.
Yeah. How should sales leaders start to frame that? You alluded to it earlier on the notion of, we want to trust it in the middle of the funnel. I totally am fine for it to help me, again, write the email, get the meeting, go do the things that fill the pipeline. But when it comes to kind of how we move things through it, how do we get sales leaders to kind of shift the thinking there that says, okay, how do we go from more leads to more wins? What do you think it means for the broader sales process or even sales technology strategy the sales leaders sitting down looking at?
Yeah, I think, it's kind of like a racing tide lifts all ships, in the sense that, like, what happens in that middle funnel, like the difference between your top 1% rep and maybe like your bottom quarter, they treat those deals a lot differently, right? How they're engaging. Are they engaging the whole buying committee, or are they just kind of stuck talking to their one POC and hoping that he evangelizes and champions internally? So I think kind of a switching of systems is kind of needed to understand, if we want to apply AI in the middle of the funnel, are our tools that are all used connected so that we can have kind of clarity on what's actually happening? Are we providing best practices in terms of, because then the AI in the middle funnel is providing that guidance. So is it systematized? Is it using your sales methodology to be able to be replicated by the whole 100% of sales reps? So I think there's a lot of kind of learning and training to do there. And, it's more than just an outbound machine that can do it faster.
Yeah, absolutely. Good, solid advice, Bill. All right, second to last bit. Thank you for this, and thank you for the audience. Remember, you can ask questions if you have them. My question for Blue is, what do you think this all means for the future, given the expertise you have, where you sit in the middle of all this, your expertise, your range? Because a lot of what we get, quite frankly, at Team Vivun, is that when we go to market and we talk to people, they are confused. There's the difference between an agent and an assistant. There's a difference between an AI tool and an AI workflow. There's just a lot of stuff out there. And with overwhelm, with confuse, with cognitive overload, there tends to be a lot of not nows, right? So if you had to share your perspectives from this report and give 3 takeaways, what would they be?
I would say the first one is don't be afraid to start. There's never, it's not a wait, not now, I'll save it for later. Even if it's early, even if it's small, it's really good to experiment and start because it's not going away, right? There might be pontificators out there that saying that there won't be any sales roles in 10 years. Maybe that's a little aggressive, but the use of AI isn't going away. So integrate it into your sales reps workflows. So rather than having one solution that does one thing, one that does another, try to find a unified solution that can provide multiple different avenues, whether that's top of funnel, whether that's middle of the funnel or whatnot. But don't be afraid to experiment. 2, make sure that it can integrate into your system and you kind of have data governance rules. And if it's aligned with your sales methodology, there's no reason to kind of create a new tool and have more problems than need be. So, kind of make sure that it can integrate, that it's connective, and that it can provide guidance in near real time, especially with live call coaching that I think we talked about. It's great if it can give you an answer to an objection. It's good if it does that in real time. If it does that 10 minutes after the call, it's not good. So, kind of conduct proof of concepts, make sure that it can work as it said, because there is a lot of kind of marketing fluff out there that's probably leading to some of that confusion that you mentioned. And 3, I would say is kind of my advice is always look at AI as a force multiplier, something to 10x, not as something that can divide, right? So when a lot of times headcount's brought up, I would use it as a force multiplier. So say you have 10 reps, use that to imagine that you can support a business of 100 reps, rather than using that same kind of POV and saying, oh, I only need 1 sales rep because it can do 10x, right? So like use it as a force multiplier rather than a cost center and kind of a CFO best friend.
Got it. Makes a ton of sense. Great sound, solid advice, but we really appreciate it. This is very helpful. I think how to think about ROI, long-term business value is a key piece we keep at the forefront of our conversations, because you're right. Just giving every rep just a little bit more scale, a little bit more capacity goes a long way, especially in a world where not every rep makes quota. So if you can kind of lift everyone up along the way and get to higher levels of attainment and participation with the help of AI, everybody's better off in the long run. So we appreciate it. We want to move to close because this has been a power-packed session. But I want to thank you for your time, and we really appreciate you. I'd let the audience know that if you'd like to read the full report, you can download that at Vivun. QR codes here to make this super easy for you. And if you'd like to join into the conversation, there is a Vivun community. You are experiencing a little bit of the Powerline community, what we offer in terms of helping sales and go-to-market teams navigate this AI world. Join the conversation there. We'd love to talk to you. And then if you're interested in G2 and their custom research offering, you can schedule a meeting directly with their research team. We'll put that link in the chat below. Blue, any closing words for you before we boogie?
Only thing I would say is, as I just mentioned, don't be afraid to try. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, share any best practices you learned, successes, or even worse, kind of failures and challenges you've had with kind of integrating AI in sales. But I think it's important to get your foot in the water.
Absolutely. Just jump in. Let's just get it. Blue, again, thank you so much. Audience, thank you so much. We appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to future conversations. Everybody be safe and sound. Take care.